It is Rhema Brekky on your Friday morning. Great to have you on board. And because it is the second Friday of the month, we are joined live via Zoom, as a matter of fact, this morning with our resident naturopath and nutritionist, Kelli Kieselbach. How are you, Kelli?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm going like a house on fire, as a matter of fact, and any better, I'd be dangerous, and all the other cliches I could think of, I'll throw them in there this morning, but going really, really well. How are things with you, work-wise particularly? Busy?
Yeah, not too bad. Fairly steady at the moment. So it's festival season over here in Adelaide, so things tend to quieten down a bit over Mad March.
There you go.
But yeah.
There you go. That's what we want to hear. Nice and busy, but as long as you're having a good time in amongst it. Now, look, one of the reasons, obviously, why we love to have you on board every month is because of the great topics that we get to cover and lots of practical tips there. And I guess one of the things is too, obviously, you're a believer, and but a lot of people, they sort of tend, if they can, steer more away from, I guess, your sort of your more traditional kind of pharmacological approaches to health and well-being, and they look more towards that kind of naturopathic nutritionist kind of arena. And it's, I think probably all of us should do that at some point. It's a great combination too. And this morning we want to talk about a condition that is fairly common, as a matter of fact. Lots of people suffer with this one, and it's the good old reflux. And I could just hear a groan coming up from people around the Central Coast this morning. So let's kick into that. Now, firstly, what is reflux?
Yeah, well, very simply put, reflux is when the contents of your stomach splash back or find their way back up into the esophagus. So, and that shouldn't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what are some of the common signs and symptoms? Because I think there is a few different ones, isn't there?
There are a few different ones. I think the main one that probably most people associate reflux with is that sense of heartburn, so that burning sensation in the chest, or maybe pain, stomach pain sort of under the ribs and that upper abdominal area. But you can also have nausea and bloating with it. Some people find they'll have a bit of a persistent cough that's otherwise unexplained, especially when they wake up in the morning. It can be a bad taste in the mouth or bad breath as well, regurgitation of food. And it's often, not always, but it can be associated with other digestive issues and symptoms as well. So people might find they also get bloating or, have issues with bowel movements and things like that, because they tend to go hand in hand. Yeah.
I mean, it is gnarly when you think about it, though, all of that. The contents of the stomach in the mouth again, it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant experience. And it's something we all experience from time to time. But when it becomes frequent or a regular thing, then that's a problem.
Absolutely. Now, what are the causes of it? Because we sort of had a look at what it is, but what are the underlying things behind reflux?
Yeah, well, it can be a structural issue. So that sphincter that sits at the bottom of the esophagus, between the esophagus and the stomach, there can be some structural issues. If people have a hiatus hernia or something like that, that will definitely contribute. But then there's some more functional issues. So, things like food intolerances, or trouble with producing an appropriate amount of stomach acid, for example, and it could be too much or it could be too little as well, and stomach enzymes. So there is definitely some other contributing factors as well that can play a role there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, who is it more likely to affect?
So people who are overweight tend to have more issues with reflux, and also pregnant women. And that can be that structural thing where, you've got more body mass that's pushing the stomach up from underneath. So that would be also another cause. Older adults tend to experience it more, and people who overdo the alcohol or the processed foods as well will tend to have a worse experience with reflux, and smokers, definitely.
Yeah. What about anybody who, just for a quick example, maybe taking like long-term medications for other conditions?
Yes.
Can that actually contribute to reflux as well?
It can, yeah, it definitely can. Probably the main ones we think of here is sort of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories can
Mhm.
cause a problem, but there are other medications as well. And people just might be a little bit prone to it genetically as well. So, they might be a bit more sensitive to, the certain foods or certain medications that's going to upset their system. There's also, some links with sort of bacterial infections and things. So a lot of people have probably heard the term H. pylori by now,
Mhm.
or Helicobacter pylori, which is a bacterial overgrowth that can occur, and that can definitely contribute to symptoms as well.
Yeah, they are very common names now. Those ones, aren't they? In a lot of medical terminology, it seems to be
Yeah,
everywhere almost. It's quite
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Now, when we're talking about reflux, and there's a lot of other terms that you can sort of talk around about that topic. Now, is there a difference between, say, acid reflux, between the heartburn, and a condition called GERD?
Well, acid reflux and heartburn, we tend to use those terms interchangeably. And I suppose heartburn refers to the actual sensation that you get with reflux, and then acid reflux is the condition.
Sure.
GERD stands for gastrointestinal esophageal reflux disease,
Well done.
and this is this is the diagnosis that's given when the reflux becomes chronic or ongoing. So when it's more than just a little bit here and there when you have too large a meal, then it becomes GERD, and that's more of the serious chronic stage.
Yeah, absolutely. We are talking with Kelli Kieselbach, our resident naturopath and nutritionist, this morning on Rhema Brekky about the burning questions of reflux. Pardon the pun.
Good pun, good
Yeah,
pun.
throw that one in there. I just need a drummer in the corner now with a ba-dum. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with Kelli right after this. Stay with us. It's 21 minutes after 8, Rhema Brekky. It is your Friday morning, and we are joined live via Zoom this morning. Kelli Kieselbach is with us, our resident naturopath and nutritionist, and we are talking about reflux this morning. Now, Kelli, is it a chronic condition? That's what people want to know.
Well, it can be a chronic condition. So reflux can just come and go, different seasons of your life, and that, it's not necessarily a lifelong issue. But for some people, it is more severe and more long term, and yeah, that's a concern, I suppose. And that's when it goes into that we spoke about what's the difference between heartburn and GERD.
Mhm.
That's when it turns into that GERD diagnosis.
Yeah. Now, what methods are available to treat it? Because I mean, obviously, it can be very, very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And like you say, when it becomes chronic over a long term, then yeah, it makes life
Yeah.
almost unbearable at times for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, conventionally, the approach is typically it's still lifestyle, so avoiding food triggers, but also medications that suppress stomach acid. Um, However, these medications, despite being very common, they are not designed for long-term use. So we know so much more now about the long-term impacts.
Hmm.
And so really they're short-term use to try and help deal with the symptoms while you address the lifestyle and diet side of things. So, and we don't want to reduce that stomach acid long-term because it's such an important barrier for us in terms of our immune health and looking after our gut health, protecting us from infections. But also we need it to absorb minerals that are essential for us and to be able to digest our food properly so it doesn't cause issues down the track. So anything that we can do, lifestyle and diet wise, to avoid the regular need of medications is ideal. From a naturopathic perspective, there's a number of herbal medicines that can really make a huge difference in alleviating some of those symptoms. Things like licorice is one that's had a lot of research around reflux and gut health. Meadowsweet, marshmallow root, slippery elm, and then also zinc carnosine as well, which is a special type of zinc which helps with any sort of gastrointestinal wound healing, so ulcer healing or gut wall healing as well. So yeah, those are sort of, naturopathic medicines that we might be able to use in place of the conventional medications.
Yeah. Now, when we were talking before, sort of some of the lifestyle kind of nutrition interventions that are effective that you've seen personally with some of your clients, what are those things that you find to be the most effective?
Yeah, so in terms of symptoms, those medicines I just mentioned, definitely I would use them frequently. But identifying food triggers and or food intolerances that might be driving the symptoms is really important. So we know some of the common symptoms, things like spicy food and coffee and fatty foods. Dairy, I find, is a big one as well. These are common triggers for reflux. So first and foremost, we want to be able to identify what are the triggers for that individual person, because it will be different for each person, and whether this person has developed any sort of food intolerances or sensitivities as part of that. In terms of lifestyle, there's a lot of your habits around the way you eat become really important. So making sure that you slow down, eat in a more relaxed state and
Chew your food well, kids.
really well. Yeah. Yep. So is really important, and having a small to moderate portion size. So not avoiding overeating becomes really important as well. And like I said, addressing the underlying drivers on top of that. So that's something we would do for everyone. And then we want to look at what are the underlying drivers for you as an individual. And this could be, is there insufficiencies in digestion? Do we need to support the enzymes and the stomach acids to make sure that you're breaking down food properly? Do we need to correct bacterial imbalance? So is there that Helicobacter pylori or bacterial overgrowth, which is contributing? And stress management is huge, because stress is a big driver of reflux. A lot of people will say that, when they're stressed or when they're flustered, their reflux gets worse. So finding ways to manage that stress. And then the fourth one will be to reduce any gastric inflammation, because if there's inflammation along the wall of the gastric lining or the intestinal lining, then we really want to be able to soothe that and calm that fire down, so that we are become less sensitive to those triggers and those symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that's so much great information there this morning, Kelli. Thank you so much for joining us as usual. Now, look, if people want to get on board with you, maybe book in an appointment, or just find out a little bit about you and what you do, how can we do that?
Yeah, so probably the easiest way is to go to my website, which is Kellik, so KELLIK .com.au. And from there, you can see all the information around my blog, and there'll be links to my social media as well, and information about working with me as well, if that's something that interests you.
Sounds good to me. Thank you so much again, and have yourself a fantastic weekend. And we will definitely chat again next month about another great health topic. You hold the line. I will get back to you very, very shortly. Kelli Kieselbach there joining us via Zoom this morning, talking about reflux. Now, you will be able to have a bit of a listen back to this particular interview this morning. We will have that up on the Rhema website there, or actually the YouTube page, so you can jump onto there, or you can go back and have a look through Rhema Replay as well. Stay with us, more music on the way as we head on up towards the 8:30 news.